Hello, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Health Club. I am your host, Dr. Millie Lytle, and today we're covering an experiential topic of visualizations, how to visualize your dream life, your ideal life, your perfect life. And I use all of these words very loosely because we do want to adjust what we mean by those words. But I'm just going to share my screen here, and then we're going to get going. If you're listening on record, then please do grab pen and paper. A journal is needed um, for this presentation. You do want to delve into the experience of it. And visualization is definitely something that I've experimented with quite a bit. I've been doing hypnosis since 2006, and hypnosis is kind of a deep dive into visualizations. But then there's other ways that we experience visualization, kind of in a intentional way, which is um, meditation. Guided meditation often contains a component of visualization in it, and visualizations are very powerful and scientifically validated and has just historically done since humankind has existed, basically as a way to accomplish goals and to communicate concepts with each other. So the definition of visualizing is any technique for creating images, diagrams, or animations to communicate a message. And that message can be to a group or some people you're working with, but it can also just be communicating a message between your own subconscious and your conscious mind. So to access kind of your deeper thoughts and feelings. Um, so often we're bombarded with messages and desires from other people all around us, and we tend to get conflicted, especially if we're impressionable or sensitive to the wants, the desires, or the norms of society. All of these, of course, go into who we are as beings on this planet and our roles and our identity. But sometimes those kind of get in the way of what our true internal messaging and how we're trying to communicate with ourselves in this maybe this from the soul perspective or from even a subconscious mind perspective. So to visualize is an effective way to communicate abstract as well as concrete ideas. It's certainly been done through animation, technology, data visualizations. We can visualize uh, digital pictures of complex math equations, but then we can also just have it go into a meditation of our own and express what that thought is. We are all, I think, probably experienced with the concept of having an epiphany, a light bulb moment. And so when there's a flash of something that we find inspiring or something that um, our, our that connects with us on that soul intention way or something that we dream of or desire for, those are times when we should pay attention. So we probably have spontaneous visualizations occasionally without necessarily making it intentional. But the purpose of today's presentation is to really learn how to harness intentional visualization so that you can practice that as if you're building up the muscle of setting intentions, visualizing them, and making action steps towards them. So, what do you want for your life? So, this is meant to be a brainstorm. But again, we're so limited sometimes by what other people tell us our possibilities are for our life. And that can, um, put a weight on us, especially if we're sensitive and we like to follow rules and we want to be good people and all these things. But sometimes it can limit the place that we go and explore for how we want to personalize our life. So, what do you want for your life? You want to personalize it. You want to make it your own. You want to connect with your life. You don't just want to go through the motions of living life day to day, mundane. Of course, there's day to day living. We all have to face the mundanities and the realities of living, but we really want to feel connected with it, that we are taking responsibility for our life, that we're able to create a path for ourselves and nurture it and change it or tweak it as we need or have to. Um, that we are actively living our life, not just passively living it, and that life is something that we cherish. And, I guess ultimately when we get become elderly, we want to be able to look back on our life and yes, see the pain, but then also realize that we kind of had set forth that path in motion and had acted on what we wanted or made the best decisions in the moment for ourselves. And in order to make the best decisions in the moment for ourselves, we need to know what we want. So the first step of practical visualization is often to know what you want. But I think that actually that's where, and me personally, just speaking personally, where I've come up, uh, had hard times understanding how to visualize my life or how to implement the visualizations is just knowing and being able to connect with actually what I wanted, what was possible, because it can be also pretty easy to go with the flow and take what life gives you and without really considering how you want to tailor that or how you want to maneuver that. And so we're going to practice that because I think that that can, especially as women, I mean, I don't know, so I can't speak for men, but I think as women, we tend to be a little bit more passive with how we consume life. And, we're considered good people if we can kind of handle what comes at us without, but there's also an aspect of taking charge and knowing ourselves and expressing ourselves that we want to play with and that we want to grow, I believe. So, okay. So I apologize if some of these images are blurry because I kind of blew them up, but at the same time, it might be kind of good to see a blurry image. So this is our first exercise. Um, and if you have things that you wanted to write down about past things I said, please do feel free to journal throughout as I'm talking because you can get ideas for things that you might be able to make use of later. So here's a picture of a dress. So when I say the word dress, I think it was Bob Dylan actually that made it famous that if one person says a word, then everybody in the room will picture a different image with that word. So if I say the word dress, Delia will have one image of a dress, Chelsea will have one image of a dress, I'll have another image of a dress. And what that image is has to do with what we connect with in our deeper values, right? And so, for instance, the media is very guilty of showing us one dress. They show us this dress, and then they tell us what our expectations are of that dress and what that dress means to us or should mean to us if we are kind of normal, functioning, um, upwardly mobile, members of society. But really, we have our own internal right and reason to interpret this dress how we want. Maybe we actually interpret this dress negatively. So how do you feel when you see this dress? Um, and so that would be the first exercise. What are your thoughts? What are your emotions? Is it inspiring? Is it boring? And this dress is just one example. It's the first example that we're going to use today. But actually write it down. Like, what do you think of when you look at this dress? So you might think it's beautiful. You might think it's creative. You might think it's artistic. You might think of the fabric itself. You might think of a wedding, or you might think it's wild because of the colors. You might think it's interesting. Or you might think, oh, it's not that interesting. Or you might think of yourself wearing the dress. Would I fit that dress? Would I, what would I be doing if I was wearing that dress? Who is that dress for? What would people think if I was wearing that dress? So there's all sorts of ways that we can contextualize ourselves around just any item, this dress, for instance. I think what I'm going to do is just going to let the whole recording run as you're journaling. I was thinking maybe I'd stop it, but I think I'm actually just going to let it run. And then if you're watching from home on replay, then you can, stop it, fast forward, or just write in real time. And then you'll be given the time to actually to journal. Okay, so here's another picture of this dress. Now there's a person in the room with this dress or a very similar dress. And then how does that change the way we visualize this dress? You know, now can we see ourselves, oh, this dress is, I've always wanted to be a designer. I want to be a seamstress. I am a seamstress. I've always been a good seamstress. Or um, do we relate to the girl, or do we not relate to the woman? Do we have issues with her? Do we like her? You know, how do we feel about her? So now it's not just the dress itself, but we see it in context with something like she's showing it off. She's looks proud of this dress or excited about this dress. So she's either going to wear this dress or she made this dress. And so then we can think of ourselves in relationship even further, how it's pictured here. You might have already thought about yourself in relationship to the dress before. I kind of prompted you to, but now you can see even more. It's not just a dress, it's a dress with an associated person. And does it change your feelings about the dress? Does it make you want the dress more? Does it make you want the dress less? Does it make you feel separated from the dress or connected to the dress, or separated or connected to the person or to the room? There's also a room there. And so we're always using our discernment. We're always using our own personal discernment when we're looking or thinking at something. And with visualizations, we're using it positively. So we want to discern things by weeding things out, which is like maybe seen as a negative, but it's like, oh, I have no interest in that. I don't want that. I can put myself through that process without getting distracted, or I know what I want at the end of this, or I know how I feel about this, and maybe this image doesn't distract you further from how you felt about the dress before, or maybe it clarifies things for you. And sometimes discernment is maybe mistaken for judgment. And judgment is also important, you know. It's important for our judgments to be flexible and around how, and to understand ourselves and our reactions or our feelings about things from the judgment that we maybe experience or that we either inflict or receive. And also we're judging ourselves constantly too. So if we're judging somebody else, then we're also in a way judging ourselves. And this is important for understanding what we want or how we want to be or how we want to maneuver through the world or operate through the world. I hope that's not too abstract, but I think you're probably following. Okay, and here's another dress. So this changes the context of the dress. It's an entirely different dress. It's a different person in relation to the dress. It's also a different background, entirely different meaning. Still a dress, but so many different variables. And how did we see about this dress? Or how do we see the difference between the transition of the dress also, or from one image to another? When I say dress, we all think of different things. And also, how does it feel to be prompted on the dress? Because if I say dress, we can all come up with our own concept. And yet, when I show you a picture of a dress, it kind of forces you to think about the dress that's in front of you. And is that helpful, or is that distracting, or how do you feel about that? And again, you can think, you know, do you like this dress? Do you not like this dress? What do you like about it? How does it make you feel? Do you feel anything physically or emotionally connected to this dress, to the woman wearing the dress, to the size of the dress, the fabric of the dress? And we could have memories or attachments also to this type of dress or the past dress, or we could not understand, this dress, where you would wear this dress or who would wear this dress in what context. Okay, so here's another dress. Here's two dresses on the same woman. This is a personality. This is the most recent bachelorette. And here's other dresses, and so looking at this dress, there's two dresses, pick your choice. There's one that's contextual. There's another one that's, well, they're both contextual. When you see the full dress, the other one you only see half the dress. But then we can expand our impression of the dress further into like the context of how we're influenced by the image of the dress or the dream of the dress also. This is, a fantasy show. The protagonist or the star wears a lot of dresses. She's looking for her soulmate on television. This is the first Black bachelorette. So there's lots of different context for how a dress is seen and how you perceive this person presenting herself in her dresses as well. Much more contextualized than the past dress or even the dress with what might have been the designer. We saw one dress without a model. We saw one dress with somebody outside the dress. Then we saw one dress with somebody wearing the dress. And then now we're seeing somebody wearing the dress, but also engaging with somebody else. And then also we're more urged to make a decision or to make a judgment on the dress and the wearer of the dress. And also, how does this image or these images detract from your opinion about the dress? Does it make you feel more connected to the dress or less connected to the dress because it's really so personified by somebody else? Does it belong to somebody else and not yourself, or does it feel like something that you want? Does it make you want it more or want it less? Okay, so we're going to move on away from dresses to houses. So when I say house, what do you think? You might want to come up with your own before we move on to the images. What do you think of when I say house? And you might describe the outdoors of the house, the indoors of the house, memories of a house, specific style of house, location of the house. What you'd be doing in the house. Is it your house? Somebody else's house? The feeling of being at the house. And the house in terms of your ideal. So here's a house. Might give you an impression, might help fill in something or remind you of something. Here's a house. Different house, different feeling. Different location, probably, although they both have nice outdoors. There's a house. Altogether different. Same color as the last one, but still nice outdoors. And the whole time we might be saying, I like that house, I don't like that house, this is what I like about that house, and this is what I don't like about that house. If I had a house, I'd want this house, if I wouldn't want this house. And those would be, your powers of discernment. We can appreciate all the houses. They all offer different things. But which one, kind of resonates with you? Are any of these houses like a house that you would think about? Here's a house. It's a very cute house. Still, nice outdoors. And sometimes there's so many choices, if you're thinking about what you want or what your ideal house is, there's so many choices, but they don't all necessarily apply. One thing that I've learned in my process of visualization over houses is that there's some connecting point that that hones me into a specific place. Like instead of thinking about where would in the world would I want to live, there's everywhere in the world as an option. But then when I think about my ideal house, there's a specific type of flooring, indoor flooring that I want, which is cold to touch and cold on the bottom of my feet. And it makes me feel really rooted in that texture, which is like terracotta. So you can't get terracotta flooring everywhere, and you don't want a cold floor everywhere. So for me, I'm kind of rooted in a warmer climate because of that specific flooring that's not available, if in the north. I mean, here I am in Canada, there's no house with terracotta flooring in Canada. Now, could I import terracotta, have heated terracotta floors? Yes, but that's not what I want. I want a cold floor. So if I have a cold floor, I have to be in the south. And so there's like processes of decision making that occur over time. And even though that seems like it seems like almost a silly detail, but it's the material for me that's the most important, that makes me feel grounded in my body into the earth. And for me, that's the hinge point. So it's like, oh, at some point, I think I need to live in Florida, because that's where terracotta floors are. So this is my house, not my house, but it's my visualized house. Um, and as much, I grew up in more like this, and I've always thought these were beautiful, although they come with a lot of baggage, I think. And that's gorgeous, but where's that house exist, in California or something? And that's not me. And I don't know where any of this house is, not even from our century. So it's a cute house, but I don't know how much living goes on in there. So just as an exploration of a house. Okay, so that's the house exercise. And so if a house, or even if a dress, or if any kind of physical material, maybe it's a condo, it doesn't have to be a house, right? But if any physical material object is something that you're thinking about or playing around with in your visualizations, or something that you do want to make decisions about, then when you do your visualization exercises, then you can incorporate kind of all of these. You can allow your imagination to explore the feelings in the house, why you would choose one house over the other, or a location, or what it is in the house that you need. Not everybody is a material like me. Some people might want it because their family is close by, or their roots are there, or the climate is perfect for you, or the functionality of the house. And affordability is always going to be an issue, of course, as well. However, I encourage you to kind of make that a less detail, because that's probably not what you really want, is like the super expensive house or the not as expensive house. It's kind of like a practical detail that can come later, that can be tailored later. It's more the details of the house. Like, I don't only want to live in Florida if I can afford $1 million home. Like, I can have a terracotta floor home in probably a $300,000 home or something, so this is the way that you negotiate with yourself, and as opposed to, oh, I could never afford to move down there, or I could never do that, right? Which is kind of what we say in our brains, um, when we want something and we kind of shut it down because we think that we can't have it. So we're doing the opposite of that. We're exploring all the possibilities, anchoring ourselves to the what it is, and then attempting to work on the how to get it. Okay, similarly, for a career, how do you imagine your career? And so I'm just going to take you more quickly through this series of images as well. But I thought, okay, public speaking is something that many people might want to do, and there's ways to do public speaking in different careers, and public speaking can be a personal challenge, like it's because it's a fear. So it's oftentimes a challenge that people want to do it, or it might be something that people just have to do as part of their chosen career, and then have to kind of get better at it. And so when we think about like your ideal, profession in the world or something. This is a series of images that are related to public speaking. And so you can, if it feels relevant to you, then you can explore how you feel when you see these series of images, but I'll always start with how you feel yourself about public speaking. And you might be writing down, I'm not public speaking. There's no way I'm public speaking. And as an experiment, or you might be like, oh, I did public speaking once, or I public speak, do public speaking all the time. And so there's degrees of public speaking, thinking of yourself on stage, the topic that you're talking about, the audience that you're delivering to, the size of the room that you're in. What it would take for you to feel confident to do it, maybe what you're wearing or how you're presenting yourself or the topic. Whether your face is on a huge Teletron. And we can also, see this series of images and see where it is that we get hung up or where we get the feeling of doubt or the thoughts of doubt. And so it might be, you might feel like, oh, I could do this. This guy looks like he's having fun. He's definitely into his presentation. And then when it's like, okay, this is a professional presenting to a group. Probably it looks like kind of a small group. Here we have a bigger group, but these people are still just everyday people. Is this what I want for my life? Is this what I want for my public speaking career? Or is it something more like I want to do a TED Talk? I really see myself doing something like this. This would be very fulfilling. Or is that, no, I want to be the president of the United States, or I want to have a huge power, position where I'm speaking to obviously the world. It might also be very easy to use discernment and be like, no, I don't have interest in doing that. And no, 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 or yes, 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 this really excites me, this possibility, or, maybe not President Obama, but somebody like that everybody recognizes. Okay. I think that so those were all series of being prompted to explore your own internal discernment and process of judgment and evaluation of certain different topics. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to write down the names of people you admire. Write down 10 or 20. However many you can think of. Maybe it's 5. And these can be people in your life. These can be people that you know, these family members. These can be public people from any industry: science, politics, religion, art, culture, communications, historical figures also. They definitely don't have to be alive still. And you might admire people you don't exactly know why or either, which is fine. Does everybody have some? Okay. So then the next part of this exercise is to write down the qualities that you admire in them. So line by line, each individual, write down the qualities that you admire in those people. I've put some examples of qualities, but you certainly don't need to choose any of these. I encourage you to explore your own. And you'll notice that I asked you to write down the qualities and not their accomplishments. And the accomplishments might be tied into their qualities, of course, but it's really the qualities that we're looking for. So, and if you don't know the person, you don't know that they have those qualities, of course, but you evaluate that they have those qualities, and that's what you admire. Okay, does everybody feel like they have some? Okay, so now I'm going to make a statement, and you can see how you feel about it. But the end of this exercise is that the reason that you admire these people is because these are the qualities that you have yourself. And see how you feel about that statement. The qualities that you look up to in other people are the qualities that you yourself have and that are important to you. And this becomes part of your values. And how you create the life that you want based on a value system, a personal, unique value system. I personally find that this exercise is very rewarding. Because it's just such a different way to think about ourselves, and especially when we're trying to tailor and hone into what we want, how we want to show up in our lives, how we want to take responsibility, um, how we want to live it in action. Then we can think about these qualities as things we want to develop for ourselves, And so I say you admire them because you have them. But that doesn't mean that there's not growth that is available also. Okay, so now we're going to really start the visualizations. So now we've really jumbled up our brains, right? We've brainstormed a lot on different topics. I do want to take questions if anybody has any questions. If you have any comments or feedback on anything we've done so far, I can actually even hide that. Feel free to unmute yourself. If not, we'll just keep going.
I guess for me in the beginning, Dr. Millie, before we started this session, you had asked me if I ever did visualization, and I had answered no. But then after going through these exercises, I said, I guess at some point we all go through visualization, not realizing that that's what we're doing. Because then I started to think about, yeah, there's times when I just think, okay, where would I want to be at this point? Or like even when you talked about the house, and I was visualizing, I've always been visualizing like, okay, I need to declutter. Like, what is my house going to look like after I declutter? And I had actually taken pictures of each room the way it is now, so that when I'm done, I can see the before and after. So I guess I answered too quickly when I said, no, I don't, because I guess I actually was visualizing.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you realized that, because that was kind of the point too, is that allowing ourselves to receive images that our mind presents to us is visualizing. And when we set to it intentionally, then we can benefit from it more because we can practice it more. But it's definitely true. We all experience it already because our mind is, we're communicating with ourselves all the time. And I'm so happy that you also talked about the inside of your house, you know, like how you want the inside of your house, it's not just about moving or the ideal setting or anything like that. You could be in the ideal setting for yourself and just want it different on the inside. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to shake it off. We're going to shake all that brainstorming off. And we're going to sit quietly. And this is going to be more of an internal exercise. You can write down at the end, but you won't be writing at this point. And so just take a deep breath in, breathe in beautiful oxygen, let go of any tension. Do that a couple of times. Scan your body if there's any area feels blocked or tight. Just breathe into that area. Take special focus to get a good belly breathe. So when you breathe in deeply, your abdomen expands outward. And then when your exhale comes back in, just a few relaxing breaths. And if you haven't already, you can close your eyes and feel yourself very light, as a very light being who's capable of turning very quickly and being very responsive and agile and being able to make shifts easily without getting stuck. Just, and that might be your own personal body, or it might be a feeling of energy, anything. And feel the buoyancy and the lightness of a perfect day. This is a day where you feel absolutely yourself. It's a day where you express yourself easily, without obstacle, fully. Things seem to happen easily on this day. It's just, there are days like that. And this can be a heightened example of that day where the environment is how you want it, temperature is how you want, the setting is where you want. And engage yourself with the senses. So notice around you what you see. If it's outdoors or indoors or in some different space. And you take a deep breath in, you might notice some aromas, some wonderful aromas. You might hear some sounds which are soothing, relaxing. Just allow you to feel yourself, a true expression of yourself, the best version of yourself. And just imagine yourself in this setting as a day that everything works out for you. The universe has your back. however that resonates. But you're going through your day, and things are sinking, flowing. Even when there are obstacles, somehow it pivots. Maybe you've had days like this. You've Perhaps you've experienced days like this and not completely known why it's so good, but it is. It's there for you. You accept it. You welcome it. You're willing to repeat it. And allow it to go on. And just notice in yourself anything about this day, yourself in this day, that's particularly open to having a great day, to having a perfect day. And if you are open to that, and if worries pop in, can you leave them right where they are? Put them in a knapsack, in an envelope. Focus on the enjoyment of this moment. What can you imagine being better? The feeling of warmth, love, happiness, liberation. No pressure. And on that note, think of something that you want more of in your life. Through our brainstorming today, something might have come up that felt like you. Something that was inspiring, or perhaps it's something that you know that you want more of in your life. You have it to some extent, and you're willing to let that grow so that you have more of it. Can you make room for that? Receiving more of what it is that you want? Create a picture in your mind with a goal. It could be something that we've covered today. Maybe you want a dress. Maybe you want a role. Maybe you want a quality. Maybe you want a home, or the home that you want, or how you want it. Maybe there's something bigger. Maybe it's an entire package. So allow yourself to fill in the details of that picture. You're actively welcoming it, making room for it, seeing the possibility. And if you can't see all of it, that's okay. You can take a snapshot of that goal picture. And perhaps those words, like an affirmation, I welcome more love into my life, or I welcome more abundance into my life. I welcome more ease into my life. And how does it feel to achieve that goal, to have that goal, to see the goal picture? What are the emotions associated with that goal? Does it feel calming? Satisfying? Rewarding? Does it feel normal, as it should be? If you have thoughts that are not allowing you to go there, then just accept that as well. This is a practice. It's also important to notice where we're not allowing ourselves. And that's also enlightening to notice where we're not allowing ourselves. But if you can feel the emotions associated with the goal, breathe into those. Whereas if you feel emotions of constraint, of limitation, give yourself a hug. And when you feel ready to come back, if you have anything to write down, you just want to take a deep breath and come back into the body, back into the room. So that was the first part of the mental rehearsal technique, which is a method for visualizing. And I did open it with an exercise that allowed you to be present in your visualization in flow. So you could see how that worked for you. Because I feel like most people need some help accessing what it is they want. However, if you already know what you want, then that's step one to the mental rehearsal technique, is knowing what you want and basically having a goal. If you don't know what you want, then visualization is also an excellent way to gently allow yourself to get there through brainstorming exercises like we did today. So what we did was we took a deep breath, we closed our eyes, we envisioned a perfect day. And this is something I like to do in the morning as almost like a morning meditation. I do it before I get out of bed, and I just see myself having a perfect day. And is there such a thing as perfect? No, because things happen during a day every day. But how we respond to what happens makes for a perfect day in my mind. And you can decide for yourself what day is a great day for you, what makes for a perfect day. For me, a day where I pivot and make the right decisions kind of intuitively or instinctively, and don't get stuck or hyper focused on the problem, that makes for a good day. And so I made that suggestion. And I think it helps for the environment to be how you want it, so that there's nothing blocking, um, there's no external factors blocking you from having a perfect day, or even if there are, you can um, change your perspective so that every day could be a perfect day. And also, just the final point of this exercise is to know that everything is going to work out for you that day, and see everything working out for you that day, and to get used to practicing in your mind that everything is going to work out. And when we practice in our mind that everything's going to work out, then we set ourselves up to be there mentally for everything to go well and to go smoothly. Because oftentimes we brace ourselves for what's going to go wrong. And if we brace ourselves and practice and prepare for everything that's going to go wrong, then we might miss those opportunities for things going right and really being able to grow those. So that was the first part of the exercise. Then I asked you to visualize um, a goal for yourself. And so this is the part, the beginning of the mental rehearsal technique, where you learn what you want. So you know what you want. You have a goal. I want to declutter my apartment. I want to move to Florida. I want to be a public speaker. I want to get married in that dress, to be on television in that dress, to be able to fit into that dress. Whatever our approach to that dress was, we create a goal picture. And so for every goal, we create a picture or an image in our mind, in our visualization. And you can spend dedicated time doing this on a daily basis, or you can just allow the space to be there for that. And so when those pictures come up, you take note of them and you give them that time and say, oh, there's an additional contribution to my goal, or there's an additional detail to that goal. Or if it's something that changes also, it's just like, oh, I used to see it like this, and now I see it like this. But then you create an affirmation for each of your goal. And whatever that affirmation is, that you feel grounded into it. Feel the emotions. It's very important to feel the feelings associated with that goal. So it's easy to say, oh, I want $1 million. But it's like, why do you want $1 million? What are the benefits of having $1 million? How does that actually affect you emotionally? If I had $1 million, I would be able to share it. I would be able to get the house. I would be able to feel like I was valuable in the world, and just be honest with that and not judge that either. Just allow yourself to go through that process. And then once you are clear on the goal, you're clear on the affirmation around the goal, like I welcome more abundance into my life. I welcome myself personal development. I want to be, or I am loving, or I am valuable, or I am magical, and then you feel the emotions associated with that. And then you take daily action steps. So this is actually where you practice making your visualizations into something that you can practically achieve in your life. And you start with where you are now. And then you continue to practice it, and you don't, you expect that it will work, and you don't give up. So I'm going to take you through another way. So it comes, right? These visualizations, these goal pictures, they come, as Delia said, they drop into our mind. And when we pay attention to them and we recognize them as something that we want, we know that it comes from the inside. It's like a tapping on our consciousness. It's just like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I see, or that's interesting to me, or that's, and we take that as important. That's important. That's allowing ourselves to enter our own life. And we know it, we feel it, that that's something that's important to us, whether it's because it continues to show up, or if it shows up, in positivity, like it's a nice visualization, that's what we want. It can also show up as constraint. It can show up as a challenge. And then if it shows up as a challenge and something that's frustrating or painful to us, then we also want to look for the learning in it. Then once we've recognized it, we know that that's something that's important to us. Even if we don't know the full meaning of it, we try to expand in visualizations by creating a goal picture. So whatever the goal picture is for you, this would be a pretty common goal picture probably for some people, but what does this goal picture mean for people? Like, is this your retirement? Is this your weekends? Is this your permanent life? Is this, you know, how accessible is this, and what is its meaning for you? Where is it? You know, maybe it's just down the road, right? I mean, this is, I think everybody here lives kind of close to the, or somewhere close to the coast. So maybe this is possible just, you know, at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. And so what does that um, goal picture tell you? Create it specifically for you. And then you know, dream on it, pray on it, meditate on it, clarify what you want. The more the details, the more you practice the positive goal making, the more details get filled in because you're allowing space for that to happen. And then it also actively feels like you're working on something internally, like you're working on your own project. And then you create an affirmation for it. And you might say, you know, I welcome, as we've said, like I welcome abundance in my life. But it can also get really specific, like by May of 2023, I will have, you know, I will be a public speaker. I will have spoken to a room of 500 people. In order to get there, I will have had to go into Toastmasters and take some lessons and really lay out the practicality of what that goal is, you know, or by January of 2022, I will have, um, you know, decluttered every room of my house, and each one of my rooms will look like the picture that I envision. And you create that as an affirmation. And that's something that you read every day, and you get in touch with it, and you revisit it, and you remind yourself that that is a priority, because that is something that is very important to you. And when other things try to take over your time, you try to put it, you make some room for that every day, saying, this is a priority. This is something that I really want. This is something that shows up in my life over and over and over. It shows up in my unconscious. It shows up in my dreams. It shows up in my visualizations. I'm prioritizing it. And you can write it down. You can just visualize it and practice doing the deep breathing and the going into the visualizations of it, asking if there's any more detail to that. You know, the nice thing about praying is that you can ask for more, show me more of what that is, fill in the blanks. You can do that in meditation too. And it's just, you wait for those kind of downloads to happen, and then you set an intention and a goal for it. And then you feel it, you connect with that emotion. You notice how, and this is a really important part, because it's very easy to think that, okay, I want you know, a house in Florida. Who wouldn't want to live in Florida? It's beautiful there. I love the birds, I love the ocean. But if every time I try to connect with that, it's not making me happy or warm inside, or then I'm off. There's something off, right? So it's very important to feel it, to experience the emotion of it. Or is it something that makes me stressed out? It's just like, oh, I'd love to live in Florida, but I have to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then I create this long list of to-dos. And then, you know, that's a whole other process, right? Because maybe the to-dos are me sabotaging or blocking myself, and maybe I really just have to start working on those bit by bit. But you know, you want to go towards where the happy feelings are, where the happy feelings, not with the avoidance, but what makes you happy about that goal. What is that specific emotion that that goal generates within you? And pay attention to that. And what I found, that if it's really the time to act on it, then it will cause relief and a positive feeling. Whereas if it's still something that you're, you know, mulling around in your brain and you haven't seen the clearing yet, then it might cause excess stress. So there is something with acting on it in the right time, but you do want to take daily action on it. So what can you do now? Where are you now? So if I'm here, currently living in Brooklyn, let's say, and my goal is to move to Florida by January 2022, then what can I do to get there over the next year? So do I have to save, or do I have to talk to somebody about it and ask their opinion? What are the pros of moving to Florida? What are the cons of leaving New York? What do I love about living in New York? What do I don't want to live in? And so all of these things. And then you ask if you might need to seek professional help as well. You might need professional guidance. And so then you're always moving it forward. You're always doing something to take the step. You're not just saying, oh, well, I would love to move to Florida. However, I can't afford to go there. It makes no sense for me to be there. I've already, my lease is due here. And then there's all the reasons for why I have to stay where I am, and then never make any headway towards actually doing my goal, right? So whereas if I know what my goal is, even if it changes, even if I get to like December 2021 and I decide that my goal is not there, but at least I've made all of those efforts to get to that goal, and then I can be sure that I'm the one that's lived my life in honesty and authenticity for myself. So we always have to start with where we are, but then we build on it by taking an action every day and do something like it. If I think I want to move to Florida and I've never been to Florida, I should go to Florida. Or if I think that I want to do public speaking, I want to do a TED Talk, and yet I've never spoken to 20 people, I should arrange it so that I'm speaking to 20 people and do a smaller version of the goal as to what it is. And then, ultimately, that's how you make your visualizations. The life that you want, the life that you need, is to pay attention to yourself on a daily basis, allow those thoughts to come in, focus on the positive emotions and the affirmations associated with that goal picture, and to take steps and actions to do it every day. That's the formula, guys. So I'm going to stop sharing. As a presentation, I did keep you longer than the hour. I'm actually going to stop recording. So thank you so much for tuning into this edition of Virtual Health Club. We help to optimize your self-care to prevent and treat chronic disease, and we work with all domains of self-care. And so I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. I'm Dr.